TV. He's also a conservative activist, and he applies those marketing skills and tries to teach us guys how to apply his marketing skills in what we're doing. He's also the author of a book, The Deep State 15 Surprising Dangers You Should Know, and he has copies on sale here tonight. His websites are craighuey.com and electionforum.com. Has two very good electronic newsletters everyone should be subscribing to. He does a voter guide, and in particular is useful. He's the only guy I know that does a judge's voter guide. And they go through and look at, if they don't fill out the questionnaire, what have they decided, who have they been contributing to, who's contributed to them, so on and so on and so on, and comes up with a rating system. And that's the only such resource that I'm aware of. She does a great job with that. And with that, I'm going to introduce our primary speaker here tonight, Craig Huey.
Well, hello everyone. Hello. It's great to be here. I'm glad you took the time to come on over. And I'm going to actually have two guest speakers tonight to help me out with the talk. And while we're getting this set up, I've got a couple of questions. First of all, how many of you get my newsletter, Reality Alert? How many get the Huey Report? And how many of you are came here, you live 10 miles or more away? Whoa, that's a lot. Okay. Well, I'm glad you guys made it. And we've got a lot of content to cover, a lot of information to go over. And we're going to talk a little bit about the problems that we face, because Greg really articulated them well. What's going to happen in this coming election? And the fact is, I believe you have the power to help change the course of what's going on here in San Bernardino County, the state of California, and nationwide. I'm going to give you some of the tools so you know what to do and how to do it. Now, I'm pretty excited about what Greg's done. One thing, I don't know if Greg noticed it, but the State of the Union address. Did you know that President Trump, did you guys hear President Trump call it government-run schools? I thought Nancy was going to have a heart attack. The Democrats all were like, oh. I think he's the first president ever to call it a government-run school. You know, Ronald Reagan tried to get rid of the Department of Education. He knew the problem. But Trump is articulating the problem. And I'm real excited about Jennifer coming for the next event from China. And I would hope that somebody here would be willing to spend $400 or $500 that we could Facebook the university to get the students to come out. Because I think we could have, with that much money, at least a third of this room filled with students. And I'm going to talk about geofencing. If somebody was willing to do $1,000 of geofencing, you wouldn't have any seats in here. Because it's a hot topic. The students would be beyond interested in it. You gotta communicate to them. So if you'd like to kind of lower the age level in this room, next event's your chance. So you can talk to Greg about that, and I can help Greg out on that. So we're going to talk about this March primary. Boy, has this snuck up on people, snuck up on all the politicians because they moved it to March. And we're going to talk about how to vote your values and how to change this election and the dangers with this election. So let's go to the next. So this could be, Todd, it still says midterm. Okay, well, we identified a few problems, and one of it is that this could be the most consequential presidential election of your lifetime in a variety of reasons. And let me explain them real quick. Yeah. Top button. Okay. So here's the issue. We have so many issues at stake. Just think what's going to happen if we can't flip the House. Think what's going to happen if the Democrats take control of the Senate. Think what's going to happen if the Democrats win the presidency. We have the Supreme Court and federal judges. That will be reversed. We'll talk about that in a second. Think about the deep state corruption and the FISA abuse. I've got my book, The Deep State, here, and a couple of other things. I'll mention it a couple of times. But if you don't have the Deep State book yet, be sure to get it. You got to have the information, especially the last 2 chapters, which is all about socialism and gives you the intellectual ability to communicate to anyone about why socialism is wrong and broken. And I'll be glad to sign the book. But the expose that's going on now of what's going on with the deep state and FISA abuse, it's going to all be reversed. The Johnson Amendment and other executive orders that Trump has done, they're all going to be reversed. Tax cut number 2 will never happen. Regulations will be back. Religious protections will be taken away. This booming economy is going to be reversed. China and Iran is going to be a more unsafe world. And yes, socialism will be on the march. Socialism will be on the march. And the big danger we have is that in 2018, the Democrats learned how to perfect ballot harvesting. They're going to do it even better this time. So my question is, do you know how to do ballot harvesting? I'm going to teach you how to do it tonight. But if we sit back and do politics like we did 10 years ago, or even 4 years ago, the Republicans, the conservatives, the Christian candidates are going to be wiped out. They train people how to do ballot harvesting. They learn what not to do and to do it better this time. The ballot harvesting that took place in the last election, they were able to do it here in California, and we lost city council seats, assembly seats, state senate seats, congressional seats. But Ted Cruz almost lost because of ballot harvesting. The Republican in Arizona that should have won for Senate lost because of ballot harvesting. A congressman in Tennessee lost because of ballot harvesting. One in Virginia because of ballot harvesting. They almost won other states because of ballot harvesting. And then we have the Democratic primary. What do we have here in California that makes everything so dangerous? Something we shouldn't have. It's called the top 2 primary. You're all familiar with that. It's not a Republican versus Democrat. Whoever gets the highest votes, right? Well, think about this. How many Republicans are actually going to go to the poll? Because really, nobody's going to beat Trump, and why bother? And if the Republicans don't go out and vote, 2 Democrats will be on the ballot for November, all across the state. Does that make sense? 1 vote is closer to 12 votes in the November election. 1 vote has so much power and leverage. Does that make sense? So we have a danger. So we're going to go through real quick why your vote is important, how to vote, your values, the candidate research, and turning this around with an action plan. So the world's in crisis. You know, we got the whole issue of internationally dangers. And you know what? People voted for Trump because he's unpredictable. And he's a negotiator. And his unpredictability and his negotiation and the people he's surrounded himself with has made our country safer. We have this huge historic debt. That is our biggest economic problem that neither Trump and the Republicans nor the Democrats are addressing. We have the bloated bureaucracy, and Trump has deregulated, and Trump is allowed to be exposed. What I explain in my book it'll be mind-blowing to you, because 1/3 of the bureaucracy is in revolt against the policies they're told to do. 1/3 of the bureaucrats are working for other candidates, working to leak, working to subvert, working not to do what they're told to do. We got the deep state of resistance, we got the deregulation, these 3Ds. All those are going to be stopped. But if we can continue on, we're going to change things here in America. And of course, religious freedom's under attack. And here's the thing. You know, some people want to guess and say, you know, is President Trump a born-again Christian? Or is he not a born-again Christian? And you've got different people who are going to say different things. But I'll tell you this one thing. I don't know of anyone who has done more to protect people of faith than President Trump. What he has done to protect people of faith is historic, is unbelievable. So, when we talk about this, we talk about Christians facing incredible problems. You know, the Democrats, some of them, have said that the churches should lose their tax exemption. Some of these Democrats are saying Christian organizations should lose their tax exemption. You know, we'd have about 10,000 churches in America disappear if they took away the tax exemption. We've got the adoption agencies, the misspelling taught, adoption agencies. We have the business owners. We have the employees, the students, the church expansions. All these things have been under attack. There was a photographer in New Mexico, and she loved to do photography for anyone. And she didn't care if they were gay or lesbian. She'd do the photography. Well, she was asked to do photography and video for a gay wedding. She said, that violates my conscience. I can't do it. And the government came in because they sued her, and the government said, you have to. And she says, I can't. And she kept losing. And the Supreme Court of the state of New Mexico said this is the price of citizenship. Christians must compromise, if only a little, to accommodate the contrasting values of others. In America, should Christians compromise their values? Don't we have the First Amendment? Isn't that why people came to America originally, to be able to express their own religious beliefs without the government telling them it's right or wrong? Unbelievable. But see, that's what's happening, and that's what's at stake. And that's part of what this election is about. And as we talk about this, Brad, do you have time to wait till we get to a little further? Okay, we'll get to it. And then we have the whole issue of California. On every single area in California, we get D's and F's. How many of you know somebody who's left California? How many of you have thought about leaving California? You know, I have over 100,000 subscribers to my newsletter. And I would say that every single year, about 15 to 20% leave California and give me a new zip code. The fact is, we have a broken state. The fact is, we can't let this continue on. So, what are we going to do? We've got the highest income tax, the worst tax rate, the worst sales tax, the second highest gasoline tax, you know, 51st worst state. We got the #1 state for poverty. Is that insane? We have the #1 state for homelessness. We have the #1 state for crime. I think I shared to you the last time I was here. I was on Varney and Company talking about the increasing crime rate. Talking about how throughout California, whether you're low income, middle income, upper income, young or old, you're in danger of crime. And the problem is, because of the legislation, because of the courts, most crime is being totally ignored. The police are ignoring crime. The courts are ignoring crime. They're just ignoring it. About 5 days later, my son Corey was shot 5 times, actually more, 5 times, point blank, in an attempted robbery. And that attempted robbery, he should be dead. He should be dead. They were gangbangers with a criminal record. All high school students. Police knew who they were. Corey had 2 arteries shattered. He flatlined. A week later, I went to Calvary Chapel, Montebello, to give the Sunday morning service. And by God's grace, I was able to do it. And people of prayer were praying. Some of you were praying. Some of you were helping him financially. He is now in Maine. He's working. He had a lump. He went to the doctor to find out why he had a lump. It was another bullet. He had been shot 6 times. Total miracle. But see, here's the thing. Crime is growing in California, and it shouldn't be. And so we've got to turn this around. And my son Caleb, when he was 25, he's working at my ad agency. He goes, "Dad, I got to leave California." I says, "Caleb, how are you going to make a living?" "Well, you're still going to pay me, Dad." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I'm going to open an office in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm going to hire people there." I said, "Okay, I'll try it. But why? You like to surf." And he said, "Dad, if I go to Nashville, I get to save 40 to 50% on all my stuff. If I go to Nashville, I don't have to pay any income tax. And Dad, if I go to Nashville, I can buy a house. I could never do that in California." And he bought his first house this year. And I got to tell you guys, it's unaffordable to live here. It's 50th worst state in the nation to do business in, and it's one of the worst states in the nation to retire in because of the costs. And that's all because of the politicians. We've got to turn this around, and companies are leaving. 5.5 companies a week are leaving California, going to Texas, Arizona, Tennessee. And the progressive answer, more nanny state, more collectivism and bureaucracy, more regulations, taxes, more failing government schools, more neglect of the water, roads, and infrastructure, more social engineering, and more attacks on people of faith. And California is the incubator of this socialism. California is spreading socialism throughout the United States. They look at our legislation, they look at our regulations, and they bring them to the other states. So we need to be able to think in terms of strategically voting our values. Now I'm going to show you some of these things for strategically voting our values. There's a couple of ways people can vote. The first one is called lesser of two evils is evil. Let's say you're against abortion. Well, you could say, I'm not going to vote for any candidate unless they believe life begins at conception and they're against abortion. And that's an okay position to take, but it's not strategically limiting evil. Let's say you have a candidate 1 who's for abortion under any circumstance. And then you have candidate number 2 who doesn't want government taxpayers' funding of abortion, but they're okay with abortion. I don't like that position. But you know what? If you stop the government funding of abortion, you're going to save lives. And that's called strategically limiting evil. And then for Christians, we have what's called the non-negotiables. The non-negotiables. And I'm going to go over those real quick. You see, I'm going to tell you about a thing called church ballot harvesting. Todd, you want to come up here real quick? Todd and I, is that other mic available that he can bring down here a little bit? Todd and I are going to different conservative and Republican clubs like this with a similar type of presentation. But the main thing we're doing is going to churches, to people who often don't vote. And we're giving Sunday morning services, Sunday night and Wednesday night, and special event services a different PowerPoint than this. One that is geared to the evangelical born-again Christian. And one of the non-negotiables we have is called for Israel. You want to explain that, Todd?
Absolutely. So, first of all, good evening, everybody. Israel in the Bible, it's biblical. By the way, I'm a pastor in the San Fernando Valley, and I can tell you it's biblical in the Word of God to stand with Israel, to support Israel. How many agree with that in this room, right? So it's a non-negotiable. It's a no-brainer. And Israel's our closest ally in the Middle East. I mean, there's just so many reasons why strategically, from a defensive standpoint, from all other standpoints, but mainly from a biblical standpoint, we want to stand with Israel.
And what is that verse?
I don't know the verse off the top of my head, but it says that the person who stands with Israel will be blessed. In other words,
that's right. I will bless those that bless thee,
and I will curse those that curse thee. Yes, sir.
12:4.
There you go. Perfect. Salt and light person right there. Thank you, Jesus.
and let's skip number 2 because we'll have Brad work on that. Number 3 for non-negotiables for Christians
is pro-life. I mean, it's again another no-brainer. Life begins when? Conception, right? It's a no-brainer, and God, in the 10 Commandments, all the way back then, talks about thou shalt not murder. That is exactly what abortion is, the murder of the innocents. And I always say this when we speak in a church, God is forgiver, so He forgives sin when we repent and turn from our sinful ways. So I've done things in my life. I know there's been people that have had abortions, and as a Christian, I'm not going to condemn or judge those people, but at the same time, we're meant to stand for life, and that is so incredibly important as a people, and I believe it blesses our nation if we stand for life, and God will put His hand of blessing in favor of our nation.
We're going to get back to Christian rights in just a second and the persecuted church. We talked about tax exemption and then Christian education and homeschooling. Todd?
Yeah, again, another no-brainer. We talked a little bit about it. Greg mentioned it earlier, but we see what the schools and institutions are doing. They're pushing all types of sex education down the young people's throats. I mean, it's not just in California, it's around the country. It's so upsetting. As a pastor, I deal with it all the time. And so one of the things that we want to be able to do is have the right to teach our children, to be able to teach them, raise them up in the ways of our faith and our beliefs. And so that's why it's super, super important that we have this ability and freedom to be able to educate and homeschool if that's our desire.
And then the judges. When we are talking to churches, we're talking about these non-negotiables. Did you hear what I said? Non-negotiable. Here's how we explain it. You could be for the minimum wage. I'm personally opposed to it because I, as a business owner, know that when the minimum wage goes up, I lay people off. It violates economic principles. It's better to have everybody raised through the marketplace than an arbitrary figure that causes more unemployment. But what's more important, arguing one way or another about the minimum wage or Israel? What's more important about arguing about minimum wage or about life beginning at conception? What's more important about minimum wage or Christian rights? See, we point out to the church people how critical it is that they think in terms of non-negotiables. I have a book coming out called The Christian Voter, How to Vote For, Not Against Your Values. And it's all on these non-negotiables. And then we have the judges. And we'll talk about the judges in a second. Todd, you want to explain this real quick, or you want me to?
You go ahead, Andrew.
You want me to? So, real quick, and you probably all know this, but if you got a ballot in the mail and you were expecting to vote for President Trump and he wasn't on your ballot, it's because you're a nonpartisan independent voter or you're registered as a Democrat or Peace and Freedom or Libertarian. The issue is that many people are nonpartisan and they wanted to vote in the Republican presidential race and vote for Donald Trump. So it's not too late if you ask the register of voters to be re-register as a Republican. But otherwise, that's why. And that's why people got that letter, and that's part of this new law. The second thing, are you registered? People over at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, hundreds of them found out that the Department of Motor Vehicle had switched the registration from Republican to nonpartisan. You see, the DMV is a government-run entity. It is a total bureaucratic mess, and they've been messing up the voter rolls. They automatically try to get people registered. And second, they get their driver's license. It's a mess. And trying to clean up the mess, they made more mess. And they took all these people off the rolls, and a bunch of people said, wait, I'm not registered now. Then they put them back on the rolls, but instead of putting them back as a Republican, they put them as not independent. And so they can't vote in the Republican presidential primary. And then we have the third thing. We have the new voting procedures. The poll centers will open 11 days before. That's for the ballot harvesting. You may register to vote at any poll center, even on the last day. And you can turn in as many ballots as you want to the register of voters or the poll center. Yes. It's other people's ballots you can turn in, not your own. That's the new law, and that's how ballot harvesting is done. I'm going to explain that in a second. And you've got to avoid the slate mailings. Todd, you want to explain about the slate mailings?
Yeah, so there's basically all kinds of fraudulent and very shady types of mailings that come out that look official. They're going to look like they come from the Republican Party. They look like they come from somebody that we would support, we'd be likely to support. But then you actually look at what they're saying, and everything is against what we would, as Patriots, would vote for. So it's a very deceptive type of mailing that's sent out to people. And unfortunately, for those who are more low information types of people, they're going to look at those slate mails and be deceived. So it's super important that we educate them, use tools like the voter guide that Craig will talk about in a few minutes. But you know, there's all types of these types of slate mailings that are going out. Some even say they're coming from, and they have pictures of, like, you know, Republican Party leaders, and they'll even have official looks and documentation on it, but it's actually a fraudulent document.
Yeah, they'll call it the California Official Republican Voter Guide. And they have a picture of the California Republican elephant, a letter from Jessica, the president of the California Republican Party, a donation with a legitimate Sacramento address, but then all the candidates it's recommending are Democrats. And they send that to Republicans. And it's by email, it's by Facebook, and it's very deceptive. Now, when we do qualifications for endorsements, a few key elements are involved. We look at conservative or libertarian versus what they might be. Are they consistent? Have they shown consistency, or will they bend with the wind? Are they free market oriented? Do they want to protect religious freedom and social issues, the integrity, and do they inspire and engage? I've lowered the ratings on some candidates simply because they're boring. They have no spine. They simply want to be there and get along. They'll never speak up. And unfortunately, there's some candidates that they agree with us 100%, but they're useless. And we need people to speak up. So there's a number of things. And we have two different types of voter guides. Our voter guides go from Northern California to San Diego. For most areas, they're from the president all the way down to city council and central committee. They're in English and Spanish. One guide is for the Christian community. The second guide is for anybody else. And so we have these, but it's the same rating for it. And we have a 1 to 5 star rating. And so that's up right now. And we hope to have close to 1 million people using the voter guide this election. So are you ready for Joe Biden? How many are ready for Elizabeth Warren? Bernie Sanders? Pete? Buttigieg. Can I hear it? Buttigieg. Buttigieg is probably the most dangerous of those. Yeah, I could argue any of them are dangerous. He is the most intelligent. He is the most articulate. He knows how to phrase things like Obama. He is incredibly knowledgeable about the Bible. He is attacking evangelical and Christians and conservative Catholics. He has theological training. He knows the Bible inside out, and he's attacking Christians left and right. He is attacking Pence because of his belief in God, Trump because of his belief in God. It's just, he is on a rampage against evangelical Christians and conservative Catholics. Right. Then we have Tom Steyer. He's the #1 reason that ballot harvesting worked in the last election. He got 8.5 million signers to his petition for impeachment. He discovered close to 40% of them were not registered to vote, and he got most of them registered to vote. And then on election day, he got 78% of them out to vote. And then we have Mike Bloomberg. How many have seen his TV commercials? He has gone as far left as you can believe. Now, Trump ran 2 TV commercials. My newsletter is talking about this next week. He ran 2 TV commercials on the Super Bowl. Both of them were extremely good. And he did the right thing. You see, if you're smart in politics, you do things the modern way. What's the modern way? You collect data. You build up a database, like Tom Steyer did. Michael Bloomberg's not doing that. But Donald Trump is doing that. Everything he does, text this number. Whenever he's at one of his rallies, he geofences everybody to pull out their cell phones. I'll explain that technology shortly. And then we have Donald Trump and Governor Will. And you can see in the California polls, right now, Bernie Sanders is leading in California. And, you know, most people think Elizabeth and Joe are going to disappear. Many think that it will be a brokered convention. Maybe Michelle will appear on the scene. More and more people are saying the compromise is going to be Pete. And some people are saying Hillary. So I'm going to send you a number of things. One of the things I'm going to send to you is a video on slate mailings. Have we passed out the sign-in sheet?
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, why don't we pass out the sign-in sheet? And we'll pass out the sign-in sheet, and then I'm going to send you this ideological chart, where they stand on the left-right political spectrum. And so basically we have a fight on our hands. In California, the Republican Party has just fallen apart, disappeared. But money-wise, the Democrats and the Republicans are almost even. The Trump has the advantage because the Democrats are spread out over all their candidates. So what's the #1 reason to vote? It's for the Supreme Court. Brad, can you come up for a second? Let's see, there it is. Brad?
Thank you.
If Trump did nothing else but appoint those 2 Supreme Court judges, how would you feel about Trump?
Ecstatic. This president has appointed more judges than any other president during the same time period. But better yet, his judges are not just lukewarm judges. Reagan had to compromise because of the way the Senate was structured at the time, 60 votes he had to get. That's no longer the rule. his judges are much better than Reagan's judges. They respect the Constitution. It's critical. And then the circuit court level, the district court level, we're up to 191 new appointments, and it's still moving forward. If he's reelected, it's going to be even a greater revolution.
So what does just so you guys know, Brad's not only an attorney, he's one of the nation's leaders in protecting First Amendment rights and civil liberties. Brad takes on cases for free when somebody's rights have been violated and fight for them and help win cases. And he's going to tell you a couple of the cases in a second. And so he has to deal with these judges.
Yes.
And what Trump has done on the lower court has transformed America for 20 years.
Oh, at least.
At least.
At least.
And what about the Supreme Court? How long has that transformed America?
Oh, I'd say probably at least 20, 30 years, if not longer. And the reason is because we have crazy cases coming up to the Supreme Court because the other side thought Hillary was going to win. So all these crazy cases, legislatures like California, having new laws, radical stuff. But on the other side, though, we have these judges, they're going to be ruling, and every time they have a ruling, it's a case precedent, especially the Supreme Court. And we build and build on case precedent, which is very hard to reverse. So it's very powerful. We're looking at, if he's reelected, I think we're going to have one more appointment before his first term's over. And then I predict after...
Before his first term is over.
Before his first term is over. It's my prediction.
One more, that'd be 3.
And then I predict that by the end of his second term, we could have as good of an 8-1 majority potential.
That's a revolution, ladies and gentlemen, a revolution in America.
Yeah. So it's great. Hagen will still be there, but anyway.
So you can see the ages. Ruth is 86, Stevens 81. And
yeah, Ginsburg I think will be the first, probably be replaced. And then this summer, actually, though, Thomas may step down if he thinks there's a chance that Trump is not going to win. I think he's actually talked strategically about stepping down to be replaced by the conservative. Breyer has already talked about wanting to spend time with his grandkids. He's waiting till after the election, and with the hopes that it may be a Democrat. And then over there, Sonia Sotomayor. Watch her. No one's talking about her, but I think for analytical, statistical reasons that I won't get into, there's a very good chance she'll be replaced by the end of his second term.
that's why this election is so important for yourself, your kids, and your grandkids, because of what's going on with the court. And you know what? All the Democrats will appoint judicial activists.
Yes.
And if they are able to appoint 2 or 3 judges, they reverse what Trump has done.
Yes, definitely. You know, the Ninth Circuit is about to flip. It is actually, we've had wins. We at Pacific Justice have had some major wins with the old Ninth Circuit. The new Ninth Circuit is even becoming better and better. And 2 circuits have already flipped. So it's very optimistic.
Now, you can stay up here because we're going to get Christian rights in a second.
Yeah.
One of the issues, we have a presidential comparison chart on our website by the voter guide. But we also have it so that you can print it out for friends, neighbors, your church, whatever. And it lists all the Democrats like you're seeing here and many more issues. And we have it in Spanish and in English. And you don't even have to say anything, you just see it.
Right.
So for example, complete support and defense of Israel, 10 highest support. Biden gets a 6, Elizabeth 4, Bernie 2, Pete a 3, Tom a 5, Mike a 4, Donald a 10. Donald is the best friend of Israel ever. We have moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, our embassy. We have given official rights of the Golan Heights to Israel, and we have given the settlements. And they came out now with a peace plan that the Palestinians have completely rejected.
Right.
Then with support of the missile defense. Ronald Reagan, Greg, he tried to get our missile defense system. And he was defeated by all the liberals. We need defense against people like countries like China and madmen like North Korea and Iran. Trump is starting that, but all of them are against it.
Right.
All of them are against it. And then we have the economy, imposing a wealth tax. Most of the Democrats say yes, Trump no. None of them, unfortunately, have a balanced budget plan. Support of socialist control of the economy. Biden a 6, Elizabeth Warren a 2. She's almost a complete socialist. Bernie is a socialist, and he tells you so. Pete is a 4, Tom is a 4, Mike is a 5, Donald an 8. You know, Donald has some government stuff that he tries to get through, but that's who he is, right? And then the regulations, the Green New Deal, they're all for it. It will bankrupt our society. It will destroy our way of living. Increase government regulations. All of them are for reversing what Trump has done. I was on Neil Cavuto's show. Neil said, Craig, what's the #1 reason the economy is booming? He thought I was going to say the tax reduction, which I agree with. I said it was deregulation. Because I can tell you from my clients, it's a deregulation that has just sent the economy going. And then we have religious freedom. You know, supports religious freedom protections? None of them do. Supports the Equality Act. The Equality Act is the most poisonous, worst legislation. I'm equating it with the Ban the Bible bill here in California. It's such a radical thing, but all the Democrats are for it.
And on our website, we have a total breakdown on our website, and you will be astounded to see, shocked to see how dangerous it is.
And I'm going to send you all the information about Brad and his website when you sign in on that sheet.
Please
So the
sign in
video
on
and
that.
all
Please
that.
sign out. We have a lot of great resources we want to give you guys.
And supports pastors' First Amendment rights. So when Brad and I went to this meeting with Trump before he was president,
Yes.
1/3 of the people there, they were Greg Laurie, Franklin Graham, David Jeremiah, all kinds of church leaders, mega church leaders, radio people, authors. 1/3 were against Trump, 1/3 didn't know, 1/3 were for it. The first thing he does when he comes out, he says, I'm going to give you First Amendment rights. And everybody looked at everybody because nobody running for president ever said that. He said, I'm going to repeal the Johnson Amendment that says a pastor can't speak from the pulpit freely without losing their tax exemption. And they all just jumped to their feet and clapped.
Yeah.
And it just turned everybody. And what did he do? He couldn't get through Congress, but he suspended it. And Brad, is it legal now for a church to do church ballot harvesting and for a pastor to have First Amendment rights?
Yes, unequivocally, yes. So, yeah, and for 2 reasons. One, the IRS is not enforcing it, even though hundreds of pastors have sent their videos of them endorsing candidates behind the pulpit. So for free speech purposes, the IRS won't do it because they know if they do, it'll go to the Supreme Court and they'll lose. But just to make sure, President Trump boldly with an executive order has said, and by the way, I will not enforce this. So while he is president, we have that protection. Even after that, we still have the protection because the IRS knows they will lose. They're not enforcing it against hundreds of pastors that have given them videos of explicit violating of that. So that's really good.
So here's the thing, guys. No pastor can say we can't have anything about politics or the election from our church or office. And I have a letter from Brad that we can give to any pastor, which explains they have First Amendment rights, finally.
Right, and we're planning on having lunches and breakfasts for pastors up and down the state. Pray for us, it's a major undertaking. We want to empower them.
So, Brad, throughout the United States, Christians have been under attack. And that's why so many pastors and so many Christians are willing to vote. I'm going to tell you in a moment that Christians vote 81% conservative. Trump got 81% of the evangelical born-again vote. Brad, what are some of the things, give me 2 or 3 horrible things that have gone on that you've had to go to court on or are
Okay.
in court right now?
Rapid fire. San Rafael issued a property tax against all churches. We went into court, got it struck down as a violation of the state constitution. Riverview Christian Academy, up at it's a boarding school. The Department of Social Service tried to shut them down. We stepped in. We got it halted, the shutdown. The judge ruled in our favor. We're still litigating it. It's
Well, Brad,
wonderful
they
Christian
came in
school.
and raided those.
First they raided it.
terrorized them with rifles and submachine guns, right?
Right, because of an article from BuzzFeed about something 10 years ago. BuzzFeed, very reputable, yeah. So they found a judge to buy that. And then when they didn't prevail, then they filed a lawsuit. We at Pacific Justice stepped in. We're defending them. We got a halt on their injunction. They were trying to shut the school down in September. We won that. It's major because if they win, they're going to go after every single Christian boarding school and then the private schools, because what they want to require, the Department of Social Services, for this school is to allow students, I'm not exaggerating, to have full freedom for sexual exploration. It's a co-ed school. But even, it's dastardly. And that's how they run their schools in the state, which messed up. Also, professor we're representing, Christian professor over here in Moreno Valley, was fired because he gave both perspectives in sociology on the issue of same-sex marriage when it was pending for the Supreme Court. We won arbitration. We won them in the Supreme Court. Now we've appealed it again. They're just going to continue using our tax dollars. We're going to win again. And that's a real important case. Border Patrol agent over here in Riverside is told that she has to change and be naked out of the shower in front of a man because he says he's a woman, even though he's very turned on, allegedly. So this is what's happening, and we at Pacific Justice are defending her.
Brad,
We filed a lawsuit in federal court.
Brad, one more
to bring
thing.
this to a halt. Yes.
I know one other case that just grieves me.
Yes.
So there's a lady who's giving a Bible study. You want to explain about that?
Which one? Which?
The lady at the Veterans Home.
Oh, yes.
This is your state of California at work.
Yeah, she had a Bible study. She was in the chaplaincy program initially, and then she was there in her 80s, Bible study, sharing the hope of Christ. And they tell her, said, no, you can't have your Bible study because that's creating elder abuse. Elder abuse. And they did an investigation, and they said, if we catch you sharing your faith with anyone, she's a wonderful, loving person. I actually know her personally for about 30 years, personally. So I know, wonderful, loving person. And they said, we will boot you out. And she said, well, where will I go? They says, that's your problem. This is a home for veterans. She worked for the Pentagon. Her husband was a bomber in Korean War. So anyway, we stepped in. We prevailed. She's staying there. They allow her to do a Bible study again. They're still conducting their investigation. We hear that word too much, don't we? But anyway, so that's a very, very important case. And then I'm just going to mention the sex ed curriculum is very, very serious. As you know, we've heard it talked about before. We are about to debut, and some people like Greg are in the video, a number of you actually, a very explicit, sexually explicit video on California curriculum and sex education all the way down to kindergarten level. When you get that, sign up for that sheet so we can make sure we can get that out to you so you can send that out and wake up parents to the spiritual genocide. That's the word I coined with, spiritual genocide that we're seeing taking place in our public schools, government schools.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you very much.
So
God bless you all.
That's one of the things I'll
Thank
send you. So one of the chapters in this deep state book is on the war on Christianity that outlines this incredible attack on people of faith. So what we want to be able to do is educate people where they stand on all these different issues, including abortion. Psalm 139 says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in a secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand." 139. You see, life begins at conception. God knew you before you were born. Is that awesome? And so that's why so many people, Jews, agnostics, atheists, and Christians, want to defend the unborn, want to promote adoption. And where do they stand? All the candidates want taxpayers' money. They want abortion, except Trump. Trump is the most pro-life president we've ever had in the United States. Even the Born Alive Act. Do you know one of the ads that was rejected was a Born Again live TV commercial where they actually show people, kids, adults now, who were aborted, but they lived. And they wanted to give their testimony that they were alive and they needed protection. And the Super Bowl, Fox said, no, you can't run that commercial. And what about partial birth abortion? You see, partial birth abortion is just gruesome. So that's why so many states have outlawed it. Why so many people who are for abortion say no to partial birth abortion. You take a baby and you take it out part way, because if you took it out all the way, it would be infanticide. So you take it out part way and you suck the brain out, and then you pull out the baby. That is gruesome. All of them are for it, except for Donald Trump. And then we got immigration, and we've got the deep state mess and gun control. The Democrats are all the opposite. So I'm going to go through this real quick because Greg did a good job on Proposition 13. I just want to say three or four things real quick about bonds are the most dangerous, wasteful thing you could ever vote for. It's not free money. Now, for every dollar you spend, depending upon the interest rates, it's about $1.75 to $2 that you have to pay back. Who gets this extra money? Bankers and investors. And it never should be used. And unfortunately, this is one of many school ones that have been used. So that $15 billion is for building facilities. $11 billion is for interest. There's very little accountability. Most of this money is going to go to pensions. And who helped put it on the ballot? The builders, the architect, the construction industry, labor unions, bond campaign consultants, and bond attorneys. Now they say that's for clean water. That's good. But here's the thing. We have a $26 billion surplus in the state of California. They could have clean water in schools with the money that they have just sitting in Sacramento. They don't need to have a bond for any of this stuff. And of course, the California Nurses Association is one of the big supporters of this. Why? Because they're setting up health facilities at all the schools to teach them about Planned Parenthood and family planning. They're creating a whole system for health on those schools. Right now, 48% people say yes, 36% say no, undecided is 16%. Millions of dollars are going into passing it. Not one penny has gone into the no position. Now, the judges. We have on our website the judges from Northern California, Southern California, plus all the judges across the United States. And in these judges, we rate them. The lower the number, the worse they are. The higher the number, the better they are. Now, go to our website and you'll see this. I also sent it to you if you signed up. This is Los Angeles County. Do we have on here the... we have the wrong PowerPoint. Okay, we should have the San Bernardino. Yeah, we don't have the San Bernardino. Is it in the handout?
Yes, it is.
Okay, have we passed out the handout? We're going to pass out the handout, and I apologize. You have 2 judicial candidates that are pretty good, but you got to make sure you vote for them. You know what? Did you know that homeschooling was outlawed in LA County? It was outlawed by a Superior Court judge, and it was overturned a few years ago. That's the power of these Superior Court judges, and they're the ones that move up. So now, what are we doing? I've been on TV quite a bit. Sometimes about my deep state book, but usually now it's about ballot harvesting. So we've become like the #1 experts nationwide in how to do the ballot harvesting. And I'm going to explain this to you and kind of show you what to do. You see, with ballot harvesting, 18 states it's outlawed, and 27 states it's legal. And you know, ballot harvesting, basically what happened is that people would come to a door maybe 7 or 8 times. And the Democrats sent out this army of thousands of people. And they go to the door and they say, "Hi, I hear that," and they knew what their data was. "Hi, I know you're concerned about education. Well, my candidate, Harley, he wants to fight for the kids with good education. Would you be willing to vote for him?" "Oh, great. Here, do you need to know how to vote? Here's a voter guide of people who like education. Can I take your ballot? I'll take it and give it to the voter registrar. You don't have to go to the poll. You don't have to mail in a stamp. I'll do it for you." 400,000 ballots in Orange County were ballot harvested. Now, you may sit back and say, "I would never give my ballot to anybody." Well, that's because you're over 40 and probably a Republican. But the millennials do, and the Democrats do, and they give them out. Okay, so I'm going to tell you how you guys can do this. So is it voter fraud? No. Because in the state of California, as wrong as it is, as much as it should be illegal, it is legal. It can lead to vote buying, vote coercion, vote deception, Grammy, farming, no-show. I won't go into that, but all those are on a special report I'm going to send to you on ballot harvesting that explains all those different things. I've got one thing here. Let's see if I've got it. Oh, I set it up here. You know, voter fraud. Greg, you might remember this. Greg, do you remember Miss Leslie Ross? Yeah. Here is the ballot I got for Miss Leslie Ross. You know who Miss Leslie Ross is? One of my copywriters at the ad agency, I asked, "Hey, we want to do this experiment and write this article." So she went online and registered her dog, which is illegal, at our business address, which is illegal, and this is the ballot. So we have Leslie's ballot. Voter fraud is part of the book, The Deep State. I explain about this. But ballot harvesting can give you 6 to 10% more. Does this video work? Okay. So, this is Lulu. She goes, yeah, Greg, you want to see if there's a video embedded in here? Since this is not the PowerPoint I thought it was going to be, I'm not sure. Just a picture? Okay. So I'm going to send you the video of Lulu so you can see her knocking on the door. The 2 parents are Republicans, but the millennial is an independent. And she only wants to get the independent's ballot. She doesn't want to help the parents. On election day, all these Republican Congress people won. After the election day, all of them lost. Why? Because of all the ballots that were harvested.
Right here, Sean Clinton.
So, here's the solution. This is the end. So, this is the most important thing for you to take away. Because every one of you can do some form of ballot harvesting. Okay? First of all, this whole thing with the apartments in Redlands is a controversial issue that if you got a petition going on that, you'd be getting a database. If you've got an area of homelessness in your community and you get a petition, you get a database. When you develop petitions, that's what the left does. And they get the database and they harvest those names. They get them registered to vote and they get them to the poll. You want to be an activist that multiplies what you do it the smart way. You can get petitions on crime, schools, housing, homeless, ban the Bible. Then you could also have coffees in your neighborhood. You know what the left is doing right now? All the candidates, Bernie and Elizabeth, they're holding coffees. And the people bring their ballots. And then they tell them who to vote for down the ballots all the way to city council. And then they give it to the person holding the coffee, and that person holding the coffee, they take it to the voter poll. So they take in 5 or 10. Now, here's what we've learned. Most of those people would not have mailed in the ballot. Most of them wouldn't have done it. But they did it because they were invited. You can do that. Digital polls and petitions. And they also use Facebook and digital marketing to be able to get the databases for the ballot harvesting. So that's personal. Personal ballot harvesting, every single one of you may be having a kid, a grandkid who can vote, friends and neighbors. Every single one of you know people maybe in a card club. Maybe you know somebody who's in a small Bible study. Have them bring their ballots and help them fill it out. And grab that ballot and you promise to take it to the poll. Can you imagine if everybody in this room had 5 people? If you had 5 people just in this room, you could be inching towards victory on a local race. Does that make sense? You see how you multiply what you can do far beyond anything in the past? Now, community ballot harvesting. This is where you go to an organization like VFW or a Christian school or a nursing home. You know the Democrats are descending upon nursing homes and getting these ballots filled out? Are you doing that? There's nursing homes all over the place. Gun clubs. Okay, and we mentioned about family and friends. And then the sleeping giant. Here's the thing. You don't have to have as much money as your opponent to win. That's why I tell candidates all the time. You have to better market than your opponent. You have to get the ballots better than your opponent. You don't have to have more money. Like Hillary had 1.4 billion. Trump only had 957 million, and that was a lot of money. But by all practical purposes, any professional would have said Trump would have lost because he had less money. Dramatically less money. But see, he spent it smart. Hillary spent it based upon a strategy of 2012 that was obsolete. Trump spent his money on a strategy of 2016 that was current and modern. Because things change. And he hired as his campaign manager his marketing genius of 2016, Brad Pascal.
Yes.
Now, please stand. I'm going to show you something. If physically you can stand up, I want everybody to stand up. And I want you to look around here. And I want you to see everybody standing up here. Pretend that these are the born-again evangelical Christians that are in the Redlands area, in San Bernardino County area. These people have accepted Christ as their personal Savior. They believe that Jesus died on the cross, rose from the dead for their sins, and gave them a new life. So they're at church. These are you could say these are the Christians that are in California or nationwide. So what I'd like to do is I would like to have all you guys in this area sit down. All you guys sit down. You guys sit down. You guys sit down. Yeah, all you guys sit down. You guys sit down. All right. We're going to also have this table sit down and you guys over here sit down. Those are the born-again evangelical Christians at all the churches down the street that are not registered to vote. But if they were registered, they'd vote 81% conservative. Now, I want all you guys to sit down. I want all you guys to sit down. You to sit down. You sit down. You sit down. All those on the bar sit down. All right. Now look around. All those who just sat down are the born-again evangelical Christians who did not vote in the last election. They may go to church every Sunday, but they didn't vote. Those are the Christians that voted. Give them a hand. You guys can sit down. You see, there's 60 million potential evangelical voters. 35 to 45% are not registered. 45 to 55% are not voting. These evangelical born-again Christians are the biggest voting bloc that you could get. 2018, 74% did not vote. 26% voted. 7.2 million did not vote in California. 6.7 million did. There's 14 million Christians, not just those who say Christian. Excuse me. Making my water. 14 million. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. 14 million, guys. That's more. You know, the only state that has more evangelical Christians than California is Texas. We have more Christians, not percentage-wise, but more numbers of Christians than any other state. But are the Christians... Oh, thanks. Yeah, play this better. Yeah, right there. Perfect. But are the Christians being salt and light? Are the Christians helping change our culture? I'm telling you, you guys can spark this. And church ballot harvesting, as evil and wrong as it may be, that can be the instrument we use. So let me show you why. So we have all these different issues. We know 81%. We are going, Todd and I are going church to church. Most of them Brad's showing up too. We're going church to church. Some are on Sunday morning, Sunday night, or Wednesday night, or a special event. The Sunday morning are the ones we want the most. Where we tell the people, bring your ballot. And we'll help you vote your values. And they go down the ballot. And give the ballot to your pastor, and your pastor will bring it in. And if you're not registered to vote, you can register right here, right now. Now, you want to see how that works? I'm going to be doing the Sunday morning service at Calvary Chapel Inland. Todd, help me with this. Hurupa Valley? Hurupa. I'm going to have to practice that one. It's in Hurupa. Calvary Chapel Inland. So we've already done it to 2 other churches. And Todd's going to be doing it in Chatsworth. We have one church after another. And I have more people to do the church ballot harvesting if we can get more churches. Now here's the big thing.
Our church is doing this Sunday. The Ark Church where
That's awesome. So here, that's awesome. Here's one of the things. If a church doesn't want to have a guest like myself come, we can give the PowerPoint to any pastor or church organization, and it's got all the material there. All the material there. So in this Bible study, we talk about what a Christian worldview is. We talk about the attack on Christian rights. And then we talk about what we call the non-negotiables, 7 non-negotiables. It's right in the Bible study with Bible verses. We talk about Obadiah that basically says that if you see evil and you allow it to happen, you're partaking in that evil. We basically go over the Bible of what it says about voting your values. And then, if we can get 15, now listen to this very close. If we can get 15 to 20 churches in any congressional district to do the ballot harvesting, so that instead of a handful of Christians voting, we get 40, 50, 60% of that church to give the pastor the ballot, we will change any election in California, and the left won't know what hit them. So we need the pastors. Todd and I will talk to them. We need salt and light groups to get the churches involved. We need one person in the church to spark it. We will register. We'll do the ballot harvesting. And see, you know what the Democrats do? They have a voter guide. Well, we have a voter guide. They can go to their cell phones and see all the candidates on their cell phone. And then there's digital marketing support. That is church ballot harvesting. That could change everything here in California and beyond. One last thing, in case Greg's wondering. One last thing. You know, I come from a marketing background. And so we're always involved in the new technologies. And sometimes we get some churches, sadly some big churches, that say, I'm just not going to touch that. You know, either the pastors are progressive, or the youth ministers are progressive, and they don't want to, somebody on the elders or some donor might disappear and leave the church. And they just don't want to do anything. Because, you know, 20% of any church is going to be progressive. So, what do? Well, Todd, we've got one congressional candidate. Why don't you explain what happened here? We have one congressional candidate in San Diego we're doing this for now. And we have an assembly candidate we're doing this for. It's called geofencing. And we basically are able to do this. Now I'll have you talk about Phil. We basically, you got your cell phone?
Yes.
You ever hear of Harvest Crusade with Greg Laurie? We geofence anybody who went to Greg Laurie or Hillsong, a Christian concert, and we pull out their mobile ID. So they were there those nights. Anybody that was there, we capture their mobile ID. What does that mean? I can send them a Facebook ad. I can send them a video. Only the people that were there. I can then take the Harvest Crusade and break it into any congressional district. There's more. So for this one candidate that we're doing, we identified about 125 churches in his congressional district that are evangelical churches. And we were able to pull out how many?
Almost 200,000 people. 200,000
born-again evangelical Christians that were at church in the last 6 months on a Sunday morning. And we got their mobile ID, and right now we're sending them videos and Facebook ads for this congressional candidate. We're getting people who normally don't vote, called a low propensity voter, and we're getting activated those who might vote or do vote and making sure they do vote their values. How does this work? You want to explain about Phil Liberatore?
Yeah, so I had the privilege of working on the Phil Liberatore campaign, and Phil was in California District 39. He was not a recognized name in the district. You know, a lot of people didn't know who he was, and there was about 15 people that had come into this race, and they were trying to take a seat from an incumbent who had left. And so it was, you know, all these people. Phil was like the last of the group, but he went to Craig and said, Craig, I need your help. And Craig was able, through the marketing agency and through the tactics that he was just talking about with geofencing, was able to get unbelievable results. Phil went from being the last place, somebody who no one really knew who he was. He came all the way up to 3rd place. And the result, I mean, people are still using that race to look and say, what happened? Because all the polling was wrong. Everybody was completely wrong about it, but what happened?
Explain how much he paid to do this versus his opponents, how much money they spent.
Oh my goodness, he had peanuts as far as a budget compared to...
He goes to me, Craig, I've got $50,000 I can spend. And Phil, you're not going to win with $50,000. Nobody can win with $50,000. Well, that's what I got. So we used $50,000, and we thought the best thing to do was to geofence Christians in the district and get them out the vote. And he was running against candidates that had $1.5, $2 million. And he wiped them out.
It was unbelievable.
So that's called geofencing. If you're interested in the marketing, for the business world, for business owners, I wrote this book called, it's just now coming out on Amazon, I think this week, The New Multi-Channel Integrated Marketing. What is the left doing? It's all in here. It's the latest marketing techniques. You want to know what's going on with the political campaign? You want to know how to transform politics and culture? This is for business owners, but it tells everything that's going on. I'd be glad to sign that if you like that type of stuff. So basically, those are the figures. You want to mention those figures, or did you?
Yeah, so I mean, with geofencing, one of the things I want to talk about before we get into these figures is we can get around a pastor that doesn't want to let, so this is one of the most frustrating things for me, is that pastors that won't let us come speak about, these very important topics. And, so what do? So with geofencing, we've come up with a strategy which is amazing. We can do an adopt a church. And for, what is it, like $1,000 around that? We can geofence just what Craig was just talking about, that church. So we can get around the pastor or the leadership that won't let us come there, and we can still reach the congregants. So this is breakthrough technology, and I wanted to mention that because it's huge. Yeah. So that's one of the things with geofencing that we can do. But these are just some of the examples of what came out. So we had 100,000 landing page visitors, 942,000 impressions, which is huge, 280,000 video views. This is all for that campaign that we're talking about, get out the vote, pre-roll programmable TV. We did Google and Facebook ads, and of course direct mail targeting.
All right, so finally we have the voter guide. This is what the left does. There were 2 pastors right over here in Corona that should have won the city council race 2 years ago. They lost because of ballot harvesting. Because unlike in the past, now the Democrats are going door to door and showing a voter guide saying, vote for these candidates. So even the local races are being impacted. That's why we have to do this, and we'll be wiped out time and time again. So you can get the voter guide at election. I'm going to send this to you if you signed up. The Christian site is electionforum.org. The secular one is craighuey.com. This is now just being populated. Soon it'll be reclaiming the California dream. We have it in Spanish, and it's web mobilized, and we have the handout. And so we've got that to do. So what can you do? Build a database. Do digital, do GeoTV, use the voter guide, and try to get your church to have an election form for ballot harvesting. So we can choose silence, and we're going to be wiped out like we were in 2018. We will be wiped out in 2020 at the ballot poll. You know what? It's not about who has the best economy. We had a great economy in 2018. It's who gets the people to vote. It's who gets the ballot out better. You have to be the warriors. You guys are patriots. You guys are the ones able to make the change by getting people to get their ballots out. We can choose condemnation and complain, or we can choose courage and stand for freedom. We need to tell the truth and love no matter the cost to ourselves. We need to sacrifice for freedom. We need to leave a powerful legacy. And that means you need to be warriors for transforming this politics and culture. Edmund Burke said the only thing for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. We got to do this right, and we will have a victory. Guys, I'd be glad to sign a book. Here's a little plug. If you've got anyone who needs to be educated on socialism, get the Deep State book. If you've got a pastor or elder or church leader, give them the Deep State book. If you've got somebody you need to educate on what's going on, get them the Deep State book. Todd, did I forget anything? I think.
I don't think you. Well, you did forget the hat, by the way.
Oh yeah. All right. So like, we don't have many left on this, but like, if you want a collector's item, this one is. I wouldn't wear this into downtown Los Angeles. Make California great again. All right. We're gonna make California great again, guys.
All right. There's a couple of things before Craig ends, but first of all, let's give Craig Huey a huge hand. Amazing, right? Thank you, Craig. I'll tell you this, guys, we just got out of putting the voter guide up, so if you see the bags under my eyes, we've been working feverishly to get the voter guide up. Craig is the only person I know that he has more energy than just about anybody I know, so he can run circles around me, even though he's a little bit older than me. But we were so excited to have the voter guide up, and like Craig said, there's going to be a couple different sites it's going to be available on. But one of the reasons why I go with Craig is because, first of all, I honor this man. He's a man of integrity. He's an amazing person. I mean, I know him, his family. And so, Craig will never say this, but if you can help donate in any way to election forum, it would be amazing, because it's a grassroots organization that all the things that he does are pretty much self-funded, and so anything that you can do on that aspect, of course, buying the books and those things are helpful. And then last but not least, Brad reminded me too, if you didn't sign those sheets that are going around, please make sure to sign it. If where are they located right now in the room? You guys got one over here? Okay, perfect. There's one here. I think there's. Okay, so we get the front area. Okay, I'm going to bring it up to you guys.
Thank you again, Craig. Great presentation. And the title I had given in our this meeting was "The Christians Can Save the Caltanic." And you look at those numbers, there's 7 million evangelical Christians who did not vote. You get 1 million of those, and you start winning legislative and congressional races. You get 3 million, 4 million, and you're going to start winning statewide races. So he's given us the way, he's given us the way to go.